Welcome back to Beyond the Sign. I'm your host, Landon Ball, and I'm joined today with Dr. Scott Spurgeon, a superintendent of West-MEC here in the Valley. If you live in the West Valley, you've probably seen West-MEC, their buildings, but most people don't fully realize everything it actually does and the opportunity it provides. So today is an absolute pleasure to have Superintendent Dr. Scott Spurgeon joining us to break that down and talk about what impact West-MEC is having across the West Valley. I really appreciate you being here. Before we dive into West-MEC, I'd love to learn a little more about you. Can you share your background and what led you into your role here?
Absolutely, Landon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this morning. I have a lot to say. So a little bit about me. I actually started here at West-MEC in July of 22. Previous to that, I just retired out of the state of Missouri. So I've been doing this for quite a long time. So we spent 30 years. My wife and I in Missouri, and we retired, and I got recruited to come out to this position. And God blessed me with the opportunity to lead this organization to bigger and better things. And so I spent the better part of 35 years in education. Prior to that, I was a professional baseball player. I got drafted by the Houston Astros back in 1988 and only got to play a couple of years. My knee got bad. And I guess my claim to fame is Luis Gonzalez, who is a big name player here in Arizona. He and I lived together our first year with the Astros up in Auburn, New York. So I hadn't seen him, in 29, 30 years when I came back. So we got a chance to reconnect as well. But so I spent my life in education. Prior to that, just in professional baseball. And right now I live and breathe the West Valley and the east side of the metro and doing workforce development for our students, our staff, our communities, our businesses. And that we believe that we are one of the best in Arizona, if not one of the best in America.
That's awesome. Professional baseball. I played baseball in school too. I didn't make it to that level, but love the sport and love the game. So that's awesome. I think a lot of people in the West Valley have seen or heard of West-MEC, but they may not fully understand everything you offer. What is West-MEC and who's it really for?
So West-MEC, in many ways, like K-12 comprehensive regular school districts, but all we do is career and technical education. And so we serve mainly juniors and seniors from almost 4,000 square miles. So West-MEC literally covers west beyond the White Tanks out to Saddle Mountain, to as far north as Wickenburg, to as far south as Gila Bend, and as far east as Paradise Valley. And so every single year when we go through the enrollment process or application process, we'll receive applications from over 130 high schools here in the metro area. And so West-MEC serves somewhere between 3,000 and 3,300 students on our central campuses right now. But because West-MEC is what's called an overlay district, which means we actually are we have member districts that send their students to us. We also support over about 50,000 students here in the metro area for all their career and technical education needs. So again, keep in mind, we are a high school public career and technical education center that only does career and technical education. Now, West-MEC offers just over 35 career and technical education programs. And what's unique about West-MEC is that each one of our programs have attached to it a high value credential, which has been determined by our business and industry advisory councils, which means any student that completes that program and achieves that credential can leave that program, go right into that career pathway and know exactly that they're prepared to do great things in that pathway. And so we also have some adult education programs. We have about 8 of them. Maricopa County Community College system is one of the largest ones in America. We don't want to compete, but complement their system. And so we do offer 8 programs for our adults in areas that we think are most appropriate, that we can actually deliver those services pretty well.
Perfect. That leads me to my next question was, how do West-MEC programs complement traditional high school or college pathways?
So one of the reasons the central campus concept, and let me give you a little bit of history there, is in each of the high schools there are career and technical education programs, and so the high schools offer certain career and technical education programs. West-MEC offers an additional CTE programs as well. The central campuses were built specifically so that we have the money to be able to do programs to a greater scale, because many high schools and many districts can't afford the kinds of facilities and equipment that we can do collectively across the entire system. So at West-MEC, we actually, in the process of taking students in the enrollment, each fall, we open up the application process, and it's a blind process. There's about 7 different categories that students will work with their home high school counselors to complete the application, and that application is then forwarded to West-MEC, and the students get to pick out what's their first choice, what's their second choice, what's their third choice, and they even get to pick what their first, second, and third choices are for which campus they would like to attend. And so, unfortunately for West-MEC, we don't have enough room for all of our students. That's the reason why We went out for the bond issue Prop 403, which gratefully passed, and I want to thank everybody out there for your support of West-MEC. But they passed a $415 million bond issue to expand and increase our facilities. So right now, each year we'll probably get between 5,500 and 6,000 applications for our central campuses. And we only have about 2,600 openings. And so by the time all the projects for the bond issue will be done, the potential would be upwards of 6,000 to 6,500 students available rather than just the 3,200 total students we have now.
Wow, that's incredible. And so how does the scheduling typically work with their high school? I had friends and stuff that attended West-MEC, and some of them would leave during the school day, attend the West-MEC and come back, or that would be their final class of the day. So for the parents out there and our listeners that are listening with students that are interested in West-MEC and maybe they just haven't fully dove in to see what it's all about, how does that scheduling work within their typical high school day?
Typically, we run programs at 7 o'clock in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but there are some programs that start a little later and go a little bit later. So high school students who's accepted into West-MEC may start with us at 7 o'clock in the morning, go till at 9:30, because our programs will be between 2.5 and up to 4.5 hours a day, depending on the program. Then they would go back to their home high school, or they would start at their home high school, complete their morning session, and they come to us in the afternoon and they complete their West-MEC program. One of the interesting things that we did about 3 years ago is we're trying to really increase, equitable access for as many students as possible to make application for West-MEC programs, because they're extremely popular, and the work that we do with students is just absolutely unmatched across the country. So we took some of our afternoon programs and we moved them to the morning. The reason for that is we literally were losing a lot of students that are extracurricular activities, after school activities, sports, and those things that were going on in the afternoons, where those students couldn't make application to those programs because they were only offered in the afternoon. So we looked at the programs that were most applicable and moved some of those programs to the morning, which opened up more access to many of our kids.
Tell us, while you're on that, what are some of the most popular programs that West-MEC's offering right now?
We have several programs that are already full and waitlisted already for the 26-27 school year, but typically the ones that are most popular and most waitlisted on the top of that list would be medical assisting, aesthetics, cosmetology. Our electrical program now, in the last 2 or 3 years, it's just exploded. That tends to be one that's very well sought after. We also have another big one was auto mechanics. Our auto tech program was lighter 2 or 3 years ago, and now it's exploded, where we have typically wait lists in those programs as well. But most of our programs, physical therapy, I mean, most of our programs are very well sought after and are wait listed. And unfortunately, I wish I could get every single student that applies in, but at this point in time, we just don't have enough space for them.
And when a student completes one of the programs, what do they walk away with in terms of certifications, experience, and opportunities?
So each program carries with it its own separate credential, again, as I mentioned before, determined by the Business and Industry Advisory Council. And on those councils actually sits our business and industry folks within that career pathway. And so they're there to really provide us information about what we should be doing now, what we should be thinking about 6 months and 1 and 3 years down the road. So that Business Industry Advisory Council is telling us this is the most appropriate or high value credential that your students must possess in order for them to be highly successful in the career pathway in which they just completed. So every single program has a different credential, and many of them have multiple credentials. So each program has a high value one. Then you have some that would be really great to have in credentials. Then you have some that are just additional. Like, for an example, our IT security program, they might come out of there with 5 or 6 different credentials, and they may be able to add on some additional credentials, being able to work from home. Also want to mention this, folks out in your listening land may not know this, but our Southwest Campus IT security program, we found out last November, is the #1 high school credentialing IT security program in the entire country.
And are you guys working directly with local businesses and industries to align students with real job opportunities?
Absolutely. In fact, I asked last spring, and I always do this about this time, it'll be a couple of weeks, but last year we had students out in work-based learning opportunities in 389 companies. It's a requirement for each of our programs for the students to complete between 120 and 150 work-based learning hours, which means they're working right in the actual career pathway alongside a professional in that chosen field. And so when I looked back this past fall, we have between 400 and 500 actual business partners on our books right now that we work closely with.
And let's talk about the instructors. I mean, what kind of real world experience do they bring into the classroom?
I'm going to guess about 95% of the teachers, the instructors that we hire come directly from business and industry, and they can achieve certifications through the state of Arizona if they do certain things. So for an example, if we're going to hire a welding teacher, that person needs to have 5 years of experience at least, and they have to hold the credential in the field in which the students are going to be achieving that credential. And once they do that, then we take those instructors through a 5-year teacher induction process to get them certified to be a regularly certified teacher in the state of Arizona. So they come directly from business and industry, and they come bringing multiple certifications and years of experience.
You had mentioned earlier some adult programs. Most people associate West-MEC with high school students, but what do you offer for adults in the community as well?
Yeah, we do. And so the most popular adult programs we have right now would be aviation maintenance, welding, and IT security are probably the three biggest ones that we offer. And those programs are very hour specific for them to be able to sit for their certifications. So we're offering them periodically throughout the year over and over and over again for new cohorts to start. They've been extremely popular. Again, we don't want to compete with our Maricopa County system. We just want to complement the programs that we feel we could work well.
And are there certain industries right now? I mean, doing what you do, I'm sure you have a pretty good feel. Are there certain industries right now that are just in high demand of workers? From a real estate side, we see all the houses going up left and right, but who's doing all the work, right? I think a lot of the programs that West-MEC offers complements our industry. So tell us about some of the programs or workforces, I should say, that are in high demand right now.
Well, I can tell you there's probably not one program we offer that's not in high demand. If you want to go from the top of the list, construction, trades is huge, medical is huge, transportation is huge. And again, we just had the big influx of TSMC and Amcor with their multi-billion-dollar projects coming in. And what's really exciting about West-MEC and our vision for the future, about 2.5 years ago when Scott Holman, who was at that time the chief human resource officer at TSMC, we got together and had a conversation about what we could do together collectively to increase the workforce for the semiconductor industry. And I said, we'll work with you, but there's one thing that I need for you to do for me. And he said, what's that? And I said, well, we need to have your actual engineers from your fab floors on our design team, because you can give me a job description all day long. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what the students are going to be doing every single day. So he did that. He held as a part of the agreement, and we had their engineers on our design team. And then this past July, we just opened a brand new facility on our Northeast campus, which is up at the Deer Valley Airport, advanced manufacturing and a new welding facility there. And the advanced manufacturing space has the only high school clean tech room in the country. And we'll actually be having a ribbon cutting for that clean tech room on April the 13th. And so that program is designed to produce 3 different types of technicians: facility maintenance and equipment technicians. And the students that complete that 2-year program and achieve those credentials can bypass the actual apprenticeship that TSMC offers, because our program is much more in depth and go right to work with TSMC tomorrow.
That's incredible. There's a whole lot to offer here. So you said in the beginning of this, when students are interested in joining West-MEC, they would consult with their counselors in the school to fill out an application through West-MEC, or do they go directly to West-MEC? How does that work for those that are listening and want to get their students enrolled?
Process begins back. We have a full recruiting department that goes out to the high schools and to community events, and they recruit and they talk about West-MEC programs and make sure that the community is aware of what we offer. And so from that point, then students who would be interested in West-MEC, that application window opens, and students that are interested would go to their counselor, and then there's a process through our site and through their site that they fill out the application and submit that for West-MEC. And then at that point, then we have what's called the students that are actually placed or selected to come to West-MEC. Now, again, I said this was a blind application process, so we don't know if the student might have special needs or the student might be a very high-functioning student on the other end. We don't know that until the students are accepted. West-MEC has between 16 and 17% of our students are students with special needs, and folks may not know that. The exciting thing is that there's only about 0.6 of a point difference in performance with our students with special needs and the students without special needs. And so we do a tremendous job of really focusing in on the true needs of the students, getting them in the labs, pathways. Now, let me back up a little bit, because you asked a little bit more about West-MEC. Let me talk about all of our campuses. So folks may have driven by some of these. So our first original central campus is located right by the Glendale Airport at Glendale Avenue in Glen Arbor. That's the central campus that was open in 2011. The next campus that was open is the Northeast campus, which is at the Deer Valley Airport. It's about 19th and Williams. That was open in 2014. In 2016, the Southwest campus, which is located just south 10 and Broad Way. People have probably driven past that many times. You see the big orange facilities off to the south there, and there's so much growth there right now that you can barely even see our facility anymore. I mean, it's just exploding with the new variety of shops and entertainment district that's coming in there. That opened in 2016. In 2017, our Northwest campus, which is at 60 and Dysart, almost looks like the college campus sitting right there on the southwest corner at 60 and Dysart. And then our newest campus that just opened is called the Career Academy at Agua Fria. And I want to explain what this Career Academy means. The state of Arizona does not provide any transportation funding for what we call CTEDs, or Career and Technical Education Districts in the state of Arizona. We do have 5 IGA contracts with 5 different districts to provide the funding for the driver, and half the funding for the driver and half the benefits for the driver for that person to pick up at one high school and bring to one of our central campuses. So since many students have a difficult time or have no access to resource to get to our campuses there and back, then we're deciding to build a new concept called the Career Academy, which puts our campuses closer to high schools where more students can apply. So now, for an example, if there were students that want to apply from Agua Fria High School that have no resources in transportation to get to our campuses, they can just jump on their golf carts or to walk across the athletic field. They can come right into my programs. And what's really cool about the Career Academy is for the second consecutive year, we have 4 programs there. All 4 programs were full and waitlisted this year, and they're full and waitlisted already for next year. Now, our plans for that campus, we're going to be adding 4 additional programs, which will be open in December 27. So right now, you have 4 programs there. There is electrical, HVAC, medium heavy diesel, and welding. Coming in December of 27, we have low voltage electrical, we have drones, we have architectural design using Revit, and we have plumbing. And this will be the first time we've offered plumbing in a number of years, and we think that's going to be a tremendous trade for our students. Again, keep in mind, each one of those individual career pathways could be life-changing for each of the students to complete those programs right into the world of work. Now, let me make a side note here. Most folks in your land of listeners might think that the vast majority of students who come through West-MEC go right into the world of work. That's not true. Between 66 and 68% of my students that complete a program at West-MEC go on to post-secondary opportunities. Many of them who start West-MEC had no intentions on going on to post-secondary opportunities, but they get into our programs, they see success, they achieve their credentials, and they tell themselves, I can do this. So they go on to Maricopa County or other post-secondary opportunities or a private school, and they continue to stack their credentials, or they continue on to get that 2-year degree. Many of those 68% of the students that go on to post-secondary opportunities are working and going to school. They complete their degree and they come out with no debt.
Wow. This is legit. I've learned a lot just in this episode that I didn't know before, because I was kind of one of those that has driven by the campuses. I knew a little bit about what the offerings were just from friends and stuff that I had back in high school that attended West-MEC. One thing that I wanted to throw out there, just a curiosity question, and I'm sure some parents may wonder this as well, is when the student attends West-MEC and they're there, for that 4-hour course, how is that not interrupting their course credits that they need to get in high school to graduate on time and all of that? Are they having to take extra classes or stay after in school, or how does that work with their schedule in high school?
So it's a great question. So again, as I mentioned before, our programs are typically 2.5 hours long, and the students come to us every single day. Some programs go up to 4 to 4.5 hours, like aviation maintenance, and we have a 1-year medical assisting program that's 4.5 hours a day, and one aesthetics program. But typically it's 2.5 hours. So state statute says as long as the students are back at their home high school at least 4 hours a day, they get their full ADM, or average daily membership funding. So it doesn't take away anything from the home high school. The second thing is that all CTE credits are awarded by their home high school as an elective. So it doesn't, going to West-MEC doesn't increase their load of the number of credits required. It just counts as one of their electives. Either they can take a practical arts or a fine arts or a CTE course. And so either way, they're completing the requirements for graduation. So we complement, we're not in conflict with the actual schools that we serve. And the other thing I want to mention is, and folks may not know this, is that when districts get their A through F grades, the accountability metrics, West-MEC and CTE account for 20% of that A through F metrics. And so we work closely with our high schools and our districts to ensure that if there are things that we can do to help and assist them achieving their full 20% points, we do that.
That's awesome. So you guys work very closely with the high schools. And then I don't know if maybe I misunderstood you in the beginning, but is all of the students attending West-MEC, are they from high schools, local high schools, or are there students that just attend West-MEC as their high school?
So the way you're able to attend West-MEC is you have to become a member. So for an example, let's use Dysart for an example. If they were not a member and they wanted to be a member of West-MEC, the process is this: the Dysart School Board would have to approve an application to submit to West-MEC board. Then my board would have to approve the application for them to become a member. And then if that happens, then that goes back to the November ballot. So when it goes on the ballot and Dysart's community approves to be a member of West-MEC, and they did, then what they're approving is that they're saying that we believe CTE is so important that we will pay an extra nickel per 100 of assessed valuation to support career and tech education, and we're the best bang for the buck. So for example, I live just off of Glendale on 129th, and my West-MEC tax bill for the entire year last year was $55.90. Why? Because we cover almost 4,000 square miles. So it's just a very small part of what it takes to provide the facilities, the equipment, and the kinds of programs that we offer here at West-MEC. And so we think we're the best bang for the buck in the Valley. So when a district becomes a member, then they're able to submit applications to attend West-MEC. But we also take students from charter, homeschool, private school, and online schools because we are a school of choice. So if a student has an ESA in their homeschool, they can use that ESA funding to attend West-MEC. We don't pick and choose. We're fully open, and by statute have to be open to all students who reside within a member district.
That makes sense. That's good to know. And the ESA as well. We've talked about a little bit of that on this show, and people who are using that and doing homeschooling process. I want to throw out there, with everything happening across the West Valley, I mean, what does the workforce need to look like? And are we ahead or playing catch up? You mentioned the bang for the buck and just a small tax assessment. I'm glad you bring that up because, some people who may not be privy to what West-MEC is and what they're doing, may look at that as, well, I've got another tax on my tax bill. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this episode from our end as in the real estate business, is that's a lot of people who may not be privy to what West-MEC is doing. But from my perspective, in the workforce, we're kind of playing catch up to getting especially those plumbers and electricians and that kind of work. And so I really admire what West-MEC's doing and glad to hear more. But what do you think? Are we behind, or are we caught up in that field?
Well, it's a question that, and the answer is going to be tough to hear, but the bottom line is, we've spent many years, and the only option really has been for every student to achieve a 4-year college degree. And I'm not knocking that because I've got my doctorate degree. So we always encourage students to achieve that 2-year, 4-year professional degree, whatever that is. But for many, many years, everything was geared towards sending students to that 4-year degree when we've lost sight of the actual trades. Well, now there's been an absolute explosion in building and manufacturing and the types of jobs that are coming in across the country. So when you ask a question, are we playing catch up? I think we're going to be playing catch up for quite a while, but I've never been in a space like we sit in, and we're in the West-MEC footprint, both the West Side and our East Side partners, that we're so well aligned and working so well together that I believe we all understand what the needs are. And I believe people are beginning to understand what part and what role they play in developing the actual workforce and sustaining the workforce, that I believe that we couldn't be in a better spot right now with all the great partners that we have in business and industry, our educational partners, our economic workforce folks, Westmark, who's the convener of all the business and industry here. I think we're in a very, very good spot, probably better than most throughout the country, because we recognize, and at West-MEC, and I tell people this all the time, we can't be everything to everybody, but we can be everything to somebody. And so West-MEC has a mission, and we're going to stay on that mission. And there are times where I have to tell folks, no, that there's nothing that we can do to help you. But the important part is that we're inside the conversation. So for an example, when I first got here, one of the most important things I wanted to do was get in on the pitch teams. So each city, and they have GPAC, which I'm a member of the board of GPAC, they have companies that come in as prospects, and they look at they look at the land, they look at the workforce, they look at what's around them. And so we're now a part of some of those conversations where businesses haven't made a decision to come up to the West Valley, to the East Valley. Is West-MEC is saying, what is that you need in workforce, and how can West-MEC be a partner? It's easier to answer that question yes or no now than for them to come and build a facility, and 6 months after it's built, they open up, they come and say, how can you help us? So I think we sit in the most magical spot where the perfect storm has come together, where you see God has just blessed us in the Metro Phoenix area with the explosion of manufacturing and housing and semiconductors and restaurants and entertainment. I mean, you see the Bay Resort, which is a mile and a half north of my new facility. You got the Westgate, the Park West. You just have things exploding all around TSMC. You have the Halo. I think it's called the Halo project that's up there. You have Innovation Core in Peoria. You got Buckeye, which is growing exponentially. You got Goodyear. You got Surprise. I mean, you just rattle off a name, whoever you want to name, and they're going to be one of the top growing areas in the industry. But the key to what's happening right now is for us as an educational institution to stay in front of and not behind the information necessary to make the right decision, not just for now, but where should we be 1, 2, and 3, and 4 years down the road. And West-MEC probably has 30 to 35 folks that sit on various boards, committees, workforce development groups, chambers of commerce, GPAC, Westmark, you name it. We have folks that sit on all those spaces, and we get our industry advisory councils available to keep us well informed, to keep us ahead of the curve. So as West-MEC said, I believe we're still playing a little catch up. But once we get our new facilities up and operational, I believe we're going to be a lot closer then than we are today.
Yeah, the growth is unreal. I'm from Western North Carolina originally, and I can go back now, and I went back last year at one point, but before that, it was 4 or 5 years since I had been back, and everything was the same, as from when I was a little kid and running around there. And there's a few new things, a few new restaurants and stuff like that, but nothing much, right? The layout of the land looked pretty much similar. You come out here and you go disappear for 4 years and you come back, there's a new freeway. There's a new mall. There's a new resort and water park. I mean, it's just unreal, especially in the West Valley. I think the East Valley as well, but, especially our Southwest Valley here, Litchfield Park, Goodyear, Buckeye is just growing, and Surprise as well. It's pretty insane. So from what I'm used to as growing up until I was about 12, 13 and moved here to the Valley, and then even from when I first moved here to now, there's new roads and everything. It's just unreal.
It's kind of interesting. My wife and I went to Europe for the first time last summer, and I swear we were gone for 2 weeks, and I came back and there was a new apartment complex across from my office. It was just like, oh my gosh, what happened? But I think what's really pretty cool about the West Valley and on the east side of the Paradise Valley, the folks that we serve, is the jobs are starting to come back where families may not have to drive so far, to get to their jobs. So there's a lot more jobs coming closer to their home, which just makes everything better for them and for their families, and I think just for their life in general. And so let me talk a little bit, Landon, about our project for Prop 403 of the bond issue that just passed in November. So we're looking to expand our Northeast campus up by Deer Valley. There's a empty airplane hangar behind the office. We're going to double deck that out and move our medical assisting lab upstairs, add a new medical science program there. We're also going to be adding a low voltage electrical there. And if folks don't know what the low voltage is every construction project has electrical and low voltage. So your low voltage are all your controls, your HVAC controls, your speaker systems, your internet, all those low voltage systems. So every project will need one. That's going to be one project. The second one we talked about earlier is Agua Fria. We'll be adding 4 new programs that'll be coming out in the summer of 27 on the Career Academy campus. We're looking to start breaking ground later this year on a brand new facility at 101 in Peoria Avenue. So that'll be a brand new 14-acre campus that will be open in 28. We're going to be breaking ground on the North Vastancia campus, which is right across the street from the ALA High School. We'll break ground on that later this year. That'll also be open in the summer of 28 with 8 new programs, at least 8, maybe 8 to 10 programs there. This summer, in 2026, we'll have our phase 1 of our new Southeast campus at Thomas and 101 coming out with 6 programs, which will be advanced manufacturing, welding, medical assisting, physical therapy, IT security, and the new AI coding software program. The west side of the new Southeast campus will be coming out at 27 with our trades programs and our medical programs, along with supply chain and logistics. And then in 28, the east side of that campus will come out with our health and wellness and our new auto tech, EV hybrid tech, and auto collision program will be coming out there. And then beyond the 28 school year, we have plans to build a career academy up in the Netteburg area. We're hoping to be right beside Mountainside High School and working collaboratively with Wickenburg Community Hospital to also have a site there close. So we have that trifecta of those 3 individuals or 3 entities there. And then we're looking to do something in the Paradise Valley area with another career academy. in probably 29 coming out there. So again, right now, we've got major projects on the books. We know which career pathways are necessary. A lot of medical, semiconductor. On the North Estancia campus, there's going to be an advanced manufacturing space there to help feed the AMCOR system, because as you realize, AMCOR is semiconductor, but they're the research, testing, and packaging arm of TSMC. And so there's a lot of great things that are happening for students. The greatest challenge that we face right now in advanced manufacturing is many students and families really never had someone that worked in a factory or in the manufacturing space. So they still kind of believe it's the old mom and pop shops of old. Well, advanced manufacturing has gone well beyond that with automation and robotics, autonomous vehicles. I mean, you name it. These fabs are run by technology now, not necessarily by your physical dirty hands. And so we're really working hard to educate parents and students to recognize that there is a real tremendous career pathway in advanced manufacturing, semiconductor space. Automation and robotics are just kind of the wave of the future. And we're going to be removing our coding program, because now you can go online with AI and you can write your own code through that. So now we're going to take our students to the next level to be working on AI systems in the learning space as well. So there's a lot to say about that. We got so many things that are going on, but we just have the just tremendous group of students and parents and community, business and industry, our economic development teams, West-MEC, our educational partners. I mean, we sit, as I mentioned before, we sit in the greatest space, being blessed by God to be the right person at the right time to get the right work done for our kids.
That's incredible. And you just kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what do you think people misunderstand most about career and technical education?
Well, probably that the most misunderstood fact about CTE is there are many career pathways where students can leave high school and make more money, much more money than they could if they finished their 2 or 4 year degree and went right into the world of work. So let me give you a perfect example. Many of our students in our IT security program at the Southwest campus, they'll come out of the 2-year program with multiple credentials. They might start out making between $49,000 and $57,000 a year. Well, many of those kids by year 3 are over 6 figures. And we just had the greatest news at our last board meeting. We had one of our career counselors that reported that we had our first 2 18-year-olds that completed our programs just by their first house.
That's awesome.
Put their money down on their first house. And so it's amazing. I mean, our aviation maintenance program at our central campus is the only Part 147 high school A&P program west of the Mississippi as a high school program. And we've produced since 2011 probably between 600 and 700 aviation maintenance technicians. And when they come out of those programs, they can write their own ticket. If you come out of the HVAC program, which is now a 1-year program, we're going to extend that to a 2-year program and add commercial refrigeration to that. And those students coming out of that program will be able to write their own ticket.
That's awesome. That's really great that they're 18-year-olds buying a house. I mean, that's incredible. I think a lot of that reason is, again, I'm not, speaking against college education whatsoever, but when they rack up the debt that they're getting there, their hands are tied for the first 5-6 years. And we had some data come out, and the net worth difference between a homeowner and a non-homeowner, the homeowner's worth an average of $300,000. If you're not a homeowner, you're worth an average of $10,000. The long-term wealth, I know a lot of people treat real estate in the short term, and that's where they get in trouble with it. But in the long-term game of owning real estate, the wealth that it builds for your family and yourself, especially as you're working in your career, I think it's right there up at the top of the chart of things you should do at an early age. It's like investing your money. If you start early, you'll have a lot more money than if you start when you're later in your life. And the same goes for home ownership. And when you buy a home, don't look at it as something that's, I'm going to buy this home and in 2 years I'm going to sell it, because that's really not we went through a little time phase there in COVID where that was a possibility for people to buy a house, and then a year later, 2 years later, they were making $100,000 on it. But that's really not the reality of real estate. Real estate's a longer game, but if you buy that house, at 18 years old, by the time they're 25, 3% every year of appreciation, 3 to 5% across the country, they're going to, have $200,000 to $500,000 in equity in that home by the time they're 25. So that's incredible.
So I get people that continue to say from time to time, they'll say, well, not everybody's cut out for college. And I tell the folks that say that to me, I said, you need to flip your narrative. I truly believe that college is for everyone, maybe just not the entire experience. Because I think everyone needs to go back to the well for additional credential or additional education stackable credential. I mean, we're always looking to better ourselves because there's just a hierarchy in business and industry that says more education and more experience leads to higher pay and higher credentials or higher positions. I just think it's, let me put it this way. My parents said, even if God didn't exist, and I know that He does, living by the concepts or the values of biblically speaking leads to a better life, in my opinion. Same thing with career and technical education. We believe CTE is for everyone. Even if you didn't use the skill set that you got trained to use, we believe it's better for you to have a skill set and a pathway, a choice coming out of high school than to not have one. So we always say this: if you have a student, and research will tell you this, if a student completes a sequence of courses in CTE, everything they do in performance raises. So if the graduation rate across the state of Arizona on average is probably 78, 79%. Well, if you complete the course of CTE courses, it's about 97% graduation rate. Performance improves, attendance improves, discipline declines, engagement increases, and we believe that CTE as a national movement is the re-engagement strategy following the pandemic that happened back in 2020, because we had a lot of disengagement of students always being online with Zoom and all the other online platforms. We believe CTE is the re-engagement mechanism to get back online. The last thing I want to mention along the CTE lines, we were blessed to have the Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Labor, Troy Selsberg and his team came in about 3 weeks ago to really see and get a visual on West-MEC and understand our systems and the workforce. And I can tell you, we just had just a phenomenal conversation around the president's workforce initiatives and the great things that are going to be coming forth, at the U.S. Department of Labor with grants and opportunities and assistance and things like that. And so we're real pleased that they were excited about the mission and the purpose and the vision and the direction that West-MEC is heading. And we hope to continue to fully participate with the U.S. Department of Labor to help and give assistance as we move this initiative forward in workforce development. Because we know the country, if you go online, if you go to LinkedIn, if you go to any of the social platforms, I mean, the money that's being spent now towards career and technical education has completely flipped on its head. I mean, you have most folks now across the country talking and thinking about how can I spend this money in a way that's going to re-engage students and prepare them for a career pathway versus maybe some other programs that may not necessarily be as effective. So we've been blessed. We see it across the country, and working with the U.S. Department of Labor and their team has just been phenomenal. We can't wait for the exciting things that are going to happen coming out from those initiatives.
And if you had a student, I mean, perhaps they could listen to this podcast, because I'm a bit fired up about West-MEC myself. And I've passed my time, I think, there's some adult programs, but I'm enjoying real estate. But if you had a student sitting in front of you who wasn't sure what path to take after high school, how would you help them figure out if West-MEC is the right fit?
So about 2.5 years ago, we did something very special. Prior to me coming in, the district did and still does a lot of work with Mark Perna. And Mark Perna is one of the national leaders in career and technical education, across the country and as well as in the world. And so he has what are called career literacy charts. And basically it shows you, if you leave West-MEC, these are your entry level jobs. So if you leave West-MEC, these are the top 10 or 12 jobs that you can go right and go to work right now. Well, the next level is if you get that 2-year technical degree or community college degree, these are the new doors that open for you with that degree. Then you can go all the way up to the next one, which is the professional degree or the 4-year degree. And right when school starts, we do career literacy work with all of our students, and they put leaves on the tree where they see themselves at the end of the program. So the greatest thing that we do, a student sitting right in front of me, is around career literacy. So for an example, if you and I would have had a counselor in high school that would have opened our eyes to all the opportunities we had available, we may not be sitting here talking today. We could be doing something completely different than we are today. We spend a great deal of time allowing students to do research on what their interests are. We actually have them produce a career literacy plan at the end of the program every single year. And last year was the second year of that program or that process. 100% of my students that left last year had a full 100% career literacy plan of their next steps in the process. And last year was the highest placement rate the district had ever seen at 93.49%. I mean, if you don't have a plan to go on vacation, you can end up anywhere. But that career literacy plan lists their name, their credentials, their career pathway, what their next steps are. And then at the bottom of that career literacy plan, it'll list the top 10 or 12 industries in that career pathway within that geographic footprint that are hiring with your credential right now. And so West-MEC has done a tremendous job with a great group of professionals to articulate all of our pathways so that mom, dad, aunt, uncle, parent, or guardian can see the end from the beginning. So before you can make application to West-MEC, you can see every single step in our process that's stepped out. If you want to be an engineer at ASU, we know which pathway you can take that West-MEC offers and what college credits you might be able to achieve in order to get you to a faster way forward, which is our motto. Let me give you some stats. When I took over in 22, the cohort that graduated or were promoted in 22 earned 4,524 credentials. Last year, we put over 9,000 credentials on the board. The cohort of 22 before I got here earned just over 5,500 college credits. Last year, we put 15,499 college credits on the board. So when folks say that CTE is not about post-secondary pathways and college bound and things, that's completely not true. I mean, we work hard. About 27 to 29 of our CT programs are articulated with college credits. And so it's a faster way forward. We think if a student will get those credits, they're more likely to complete that course in sequence and get that degree or that credential than they would be if they likely didn't have it. So anyway, that's kind of a long story of a lot of information there.
I agree. And the whole time you were going over that, I just thought, we talk about light at the end of the tunnel. You know, how many students in high school and even graduates, early graduates, where they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what their plan is. I know when I was in high school, my plan was to be a sports agent. I wanted to be a sports agent, represent athletes. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, well, I don't really know where to get plugged in to do that. And so then I started working at a golf course and was doing that for a while. And then real estate kind of presented itself to me during COVID when I got laid off and I had to decide to do something. And I love real estate. And I'm glad that I'm doing real estate. You know, I get to meet so many different people from different backgrounds and just help people. I told my kids in the car the other day, I said, hey, I got a new listing. And my daughter says, well, that's a big house. You're going to make a lot of money. I said, baby, it's about caring for people. You take care of people, the money will follow. But it's about taking care of people, and that's what you guys are doing here throughout the entire Valley. Dr. Spurgeon, I really appreciate your time and everything you're doing for the Valley as a whole in West-MEC. If someone wants to learn more about West-MEC or get involved, where's the best place for them to go?
The best place to go is our website. It's www.west-mec.org. And so we pride ourselves in being extremely transparent. We help anybody and everybody. All of our processes, procedures, our credentials, our programs, our curriculum, our instruction, our scope and sequence, everything that we do is online. In fact, this past November, within about a 3-week period of time, it was either 12 or 14 districts from across the country out viewing West-MEC. And so we have visitors from all the country. And in fact, we've had them from overseas, from the Philippines, from the Caribbean. We've had folks from all over the world really coming to see what West-MEC does. But we are an open opportunity to share everything that we do because we believe in building capacity. And the better the region is, as the region goes, so goes West-MEC. And so the last thing I want to mention is I want to thank my board. I mean, I have a tremendous 7-member board who are very insightful, extremely supportive of our efforts in CTE. I want to thank our counselors, not only at West-MEC and also for our high school partner counselors, because they are the backbone of all the work that gets done in order to get our students into West-MEC. And I want to thank our students, our parents, our staff, business and industry, and all of our partners here in the West-MEC footprint that we just could not do it without all of us working collectively and collaboratively together. So we are very blessed here. God's put us in a great spot, and I give him thanks and praise for the opportunity to be in a space that we can really make a difference.
I appreciate your time again. We appreciate everyone involved in West-MEC and Chris for connecting us to do this podcast here today. I really appreciate it. I think our listeners are going to enjoy this one a whole lot. And to any of our listeners out there, if this has been a value of you, share it to someone you know, especially here in the Valley that has students in high school or approaching that high school level to start getting plugged in, or anybody who has interest in these CTE courses, just to dive in. I mean, go to the website and check it out. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Sign. Please like, subscribe, share this video and get it out there. Real conversations, real people, real value. We'll see you next time. Thank you.